Apple has a big problem with their Mac lineup, and it kind of started last year with the introduction of the $600 Mac Mini, which delivered an unprecedented value in the world of desktop computing. Then 2 months ago, Apple released their most accessible Mac ever, the MacBook Neo, a full MacBook experience at the price of just, you guessed it, $600. Finally, Apple had an answer to the low-cost desktop and laptop market, and customers are taking notice. There's only one problem. It's a big problem. You can't buy them. And the problem isn't going to be fixed anytime soon, and the whole situation could get a lot worse. So let me break down exactly what's happening, why you can't buy these computers, and what you can do about it going forward. Now, if you're buying a MacBook Neo, you obviously care about saving money, so you should take that same approach with how you manage your money with Monarch Money. Because if you're still bouncing around between multiple banking apps, credit card apps, and investment apps, trust me, there is a simpler process because you can connect all of these apps with Monarch Money. And that's what I did. I took my existing accounts from my bank, Robinhood, and even my Apple Card, and then connecting them to Monarch couldn't be simpler. And now all of these accounts are synced and give me up-to-date information. So now instead of checking 10 different apps a day, I can just go to Monarch Money, I get a complete financial picture of how much money I have in my banking accounts, I can check the balance of my credit cards, and I can see my entire investment portfolio, all in a streamlined and clean user interface. That saves me time, and it also saves me money, because by connecting all these different accounts to Monarch, I was able to see all the subscription payments I had spread out between multiple credit cards. So then I went on a giant purge getting rid of unused subscriptions, and it saved me like $100 a month. So yes, there's a better way to do this, and you can start by clicking the link in the description below and start with a free trial and then get 50% off your purchase for the first year. And thank you to Monarch Money for sponsoring this video. So let's start with talking about the problems of the MacBook Neo and why Apple can't make enough of them. Because this low-cost MacBook, I think everyone knew that this was going to lead to a pretty big increase in sales for the Mac. Even Apple knew this product would sell well, but they just didn't know how well. Take it from here, Tim.
Right now, we're supply constrained on the MacBook Neo. The response has been, we were very bullish on the product before announcing it, and but we undercalled the level of enthusiasm that would be with it.
Yes, the MacBook Neo, as I pointed out in my own videos on it so far, has over-delivered on its promise. Despite its low price, it feels just as premium as any other MacBook with its build quality, and the sacrifices it makes aren't enough to deter buyers and have them pick a more expensive MacBook like the MacBook Air. And even the A18 Pro chip, the thing powering this device, the iPhone chip, the thing that everyone said would turn out to be a problem and this would be an underpowered device that wasn't powerful enough to give you the full macOS experience, well, they were wrong. The A18 Pro delivered, it gave you the full macOS experience. But there is a problem with the A18 Pro, and it's the big problem for Apple with the MacBook Neo, not necessarily for you. Because one of the reasons why the MacBook Neo can achieve such a low cost is because Apple already manufactured these chips, but they don't plan on making any more of them. You see, the A18 Pro in the MacBook Neo is technically a defective chip, just not a fully defective chip. You see, when a company manufactures or fabs a chip, some of these chips come off the line with minor defects, like maybe a GPU core or a CPU core isn't fully working. Instead of throwing these chips away, Apple and other companies save these to use in other products. So while the iPhone 16 Pro received the fully enabled A18 Pro with 6 GPU cores active, while the MacBook Neo basically gets all the leftover chips that Apple deemed were not good enough for the iPhone 16 Pro. Basically, ones with one of the GPU cores not working. And then Apple just disables that core, puts that chip into the MacBook Neo, and now you have the A18 Pro MacBook Neo, with the only difference being instead of 6 GPU cores, it now has 5 GPU cores. Which means that in Apple's case, these leftover chips that they're using for the MacBook Neo are basically free to use, which is why they can toss them into the MacBook Neo and then deliver this at a lower price point. The problem is, Apple only has a limited supply of these A18 Pro chips available. To make matters worse, Apple has stopped primary production of the A18 Pro and has moved on to producing the A19 Pro chip that is in the iPhone 17 Pro. Now, you would be right to conclude that maybe Apple can just put some A19 Pro chips into the MacBook Neo, give it a spec bump, and release it. Well, the problem is Apple also has a supply constraint on A19 Pro chip productions as well, with the iPhone 17 series selling better than expected, and the binned A19 Pro chips are also being used for the iPhone Air as well. Surely though, Apple is also getting ready for a MacBook Neo 2, so they were aware of this, right? And they are kind of following the same strategy, stockpiling those binned A19 Pro chips, at least the ones that aren't used for the iPhone Air, for the eventual refresh of a MacBook Neo 2. So, Apple really has two choices here if they want to make more MacBook Neos. They can somehow spin up production on the A18 Pro chip again and make more for the Neo, but that is highly unlikely, probably close to impossible, given the supply shortage of computer chips overall, and the fact that they are already producing the A19 Pro chip, so it's probably just cheaper to keep making those. The second choice, and I think this is more likely, is that the Neo is just going to be supply constrained for a while. It is likely that Apple is already artificially holding back ship dates for the Neo to currently meet the demand and kind of like putting out the supply little by little so they don't have this product like actually sold out on their webpage. So what Apple could do to kind of offset this is to strategically decide to release the MacBook Neo 2 earlier than expected, and then use the supply of binned A19 Pro chips that they have surely built up by now to fulfill this increased demand that they weren't expecting. But that's not even the worst of it, because while the Neo is supply constrained, you can at least still order it on Apple's website. However, that wasn't true of the base model Mac Mini, which a few days ago was completely sold out on Apple's website. Like, you couldn't even add it to your cart. And I have never seen that happen with an Apple product before. Sure, you could see the ship dates get pushed back, but the fact that they wouldn't even let you add the product to the cart, never have I seen that before. And that lasted for about a week until the other day. Not because Apple got more Mac Minis, but because Apple has officially discontinued the 256GB version of the M4 Mac Mini, effectively raising the starting price for this machine to $799 for the 512GB version. Still, even with that discontinuation, supply for the Mac Mini is even less than the Neo, with order delays of up to 6 weeks. 6 weeks you could buy this and Apple will not be able to ship it to you until 6 weeks. That is crazy. That's for the 512GB model. Some of the higher end memory configurations for the other versions of the Mac Mini, they're just completely still like sold out. Like, you can't order them. I have 2 Mac Minis here, so how much would you pay for both of them? If anyone wants to get in contact with me and purchase these Mac Minis off me, you know where to find me. On the Greg's Gadgets YouTube channel. But seriously, you might be wondering why now, after all this time, what was probably considered one of Apple's least popular Macs, why is the Mac Mini now in such demand? Well, I have 2 words for you. Open claw. It's AI. You see, the surge in Mac Mini sales are because people are using them as agentic computers. I totally did not learn about the word agentic like a day ago. But basically, they can set up the Mac Mini as an AI agent running like as a machine connected to their own personal information. So then that AI can be set to do tasks automatically. So you can control your email app, your calendar, your messaging app, or maybe you could just set it to do custom tasks for you automatically, like web research or development workflows. But basically, instead of you like typing to an AI chatbot on what to do, for these use cases, it makes the AI more proactive and automatic kind of like your own personal assistant. To get this to work right, you need a computer that is constantly powered on and constantly connected to the internet. So like a MacBook would probably be a bad choice for that. And that's what makes this small Mac Mini so perfect, because the machine is powerful enough to handle all this, but it's also small and out of the way. And these consume very little power, especially compared to like full, big desktop PCs. This craze is so popular that the M4 Mac Mini is currently the #1 selling desktop computer in all of China. I'm not sure what the global stats are, but like, that's pretty crazy. And this has all caught Apple completely by surprise, with Tim Cook on that recent earnings call saying,
one is that on the Mac Mini and the Mac Studio, both of these are amazing platforms for AI and agentic tools. And the customer recognition of that is happening faster than what we had predicted. And so we saw higher than expected demand.
now I know what you're thinking. The M4 Mac Mini, I mean, we got M5 machines now. Apple is probably about to replace it with an M5 version. That's probably why you can't order it. So all we have to do is wait for that, and then the supply problem will be solved. Well, not quite, because Apple was a little more forthcoming than they usually are, because they told us pretty much basically when to expect a new M5 Mac Mini and also a new M5 Mac Studio, which I really didn't even mention, but that's also facing supply constraints for the same problems as the Mini because people are using them for these AI workflows.
We think, looking forward, that the Mac Mini and the Mac Studio may take several months to reach supply-demand balance.
But Apple said that these supply constraints will last and exist for several months, meaning the earliest we might see some relief probably is with a new M5 version of these products, but don't expect that to come at the earliest until like late June or early July. But here's the problem. Even when Apple starts to release more products, these problems aren't going away. In fact, the problems may get worse because the entire computer industry right now is facing shortages on so many critical components, especially with RAM and SSD storage. This is driving the cost of memory to go up. And while Apple hasn't really passed those price increases onto the consumer yet, like technically they have because they got rid of the 256 gigabyte configuration, but it's the same price for the 512. They didn't raise that price, right? But that might not be the case forever, with Tim Cook specifically commenting on the higher memory prices, saying they are going to impact their June quarter and beyond. So this is not a short-term problem, and it is all but ensuring that the lower margin models like the 256 gigabyte Mac Mini, they are not coming back. On top of that, Apple may need to raise prices on every computer they sell, all because some people think AI slop videos are actually entertaining. Seriously, has anyone here ever seen anything like even remotely interesting generated by AI yet? All of these chip shortages, all these higher prices on the consumer, just so people can make AI drama fruit videos. Listen, I can do that too. I can make drama videos. We got Dry Bones here. We got Super Saiyan Goku. Super Saiyan Goku's doing a Kamehameha. He hits Dry Bones gets obliterated. So I think that's more entertaining than an AI slop video, and I did it myself. I didn't need to use all the world's RAM and SSD storage to make that happen. I just used my imagination. Your imagination, that's the original AI generation of the world. So what can you do to try to avoid some of this pain? Especially if you are planning on buying a Mac within the next year. Well, I have a few tips. First of all, you need to try and get out ahead of this. Even though products like the MacBook Neo are supply constrained, you can still actually order them. There's about like a 2-week delay. It's not that bad yet. So if you were even remotely thinking about buying this laptop before the end of the year, I would say order it now, because we are just a few months away from the back to school season. And I can pretty much guarantee if the Neo isn't sold out now, It will be impossible to find one once students are shopping for new laptops. That is when this thing is going out of stock. You can take that to the bank. So if you can't get a Neo, or maybe you don't want to wait, my other advice is to try looking for an older M2, M3, or M4 MacBook Air. Now, if you can't buy anything brand new, it's also a good idea to check Apple's refurbished site. I've ordered from them before, and Apple's refurbished process is second to none. The only way that I could tell that I got a refurbished MacBook was because it came in a different box. But other than that, it looked brand new every time I've tried ordering from them. So you could try going that route. You could save actually a lot of money doing this if you don't mind refurbished. And again, from Apple, that's a route I would go for. Or you could just buy like an M5 MacBook Air or an M5 MacBook Pro from Apple. Those seem to be readily available in stock. But let's say you're maybe thinking about buying one of those in the future too. It actually might pay off to buy it now rather than wait. Because again, those component prices are unpredictable. And based on Apple's wording on their earnings call, it does sound like they are eventually going to have to increase prices if someone doesn't come along and figure out this memory shortage. As for Mac Mini buyers, well, I think you're kind of out of luck, because based on the delays in shipping, even for the 512 gigabyte version, I suspect that it's kind of like a placeholder. Like, it's kind of like a date where maybe they expect to refresh the M5 models, and until then, the Mac Mini, buying one, it's gonna be pretty difficult. Like, even when you're not shopping at Apple, like usual third-party sites I go to buy Macs like Best Buy or Amazon, the M4 Mac Mini is not in stock. So if you really want one of these things, I don't know. Good luck. That's all I can say. That's my advice. Good luck. That's the Greg's Gadgets advice for the Mac Mini. Oh, I guess he could come to me. But other than that, good luck. Anyway, my general advice is if you need a Mac, and it's in stock, I'd probably look at buying that sooner rather than later to avoid it either being out of stock or potential future price hikes. But hey, the reverse is also true, right? Like, if your computer is working fine and you don't need an upgrade for the foreseeable future, it might be better to try and weather out this storm and just keep using what you're using. Until then, we just have to put all of our hope and prayers into someone or something that will step up and solve this memory shortage crisis. A toilet company? A toilet company is gonna save the day? Yeah, that's fine. A toilet company, don't panic anyone.
Everything's going to be just fine. There's
Nothing to see here, nothing to see here. There's not a bubble, there's nothing to see here. The Toto Toilet Company is going to solve